I'm 49, married to my high school sweetheart Sarah, for nearly 25 years. We have a beautiful daughter, a life built on love and trust. Or so I thought. When my niece, still mourning the loss of her father, my beloved brother, asked me to walk her down the aisle, I said yes without hesitation. It felt like the most natural thing in the world. But Sarah's reaction was explosive. She accused me of trying to replace my brother, of disrespecting the sanctity of a father-daughter moment, and even threatened to leave me. I was blindsided. My normally sweet, shy wife became a stranger. For days, our home in suburban Chicago was a war zone. Then the truth came out, a secret Sarah had carried for over 2 decades, a confession that unraveled everything I thought I knew about our past, my brother, and the woman I married. This isn't just about a wedding disagreement, it's about buried resentment, jealousy, perceived betrayal, and the collateral damage of unspoken truths. Prepare for a story that will make you question everything you think you know about the people closest to you. The silence in our Naperville home was a living thing, thick and suffocating, a stark contrast to the usual comfortable quiet Sarah and I had cultivated over nearly 25 years of marriage. I'm Mark, 49, and Sarah, my wife, is 48. We've been together since we were awkward freshmen at Naperville North High, navigating first crushes and bad cafeteria food side by side. I always knew she was the one. We even have a wonderful 24-year-old daughter, Emily, who's the light of our lives. Like any long-term couple, we've had our share of choppy waters, but mostly, it's been smooth sailing. Sarah is, by nature, a shy, sweet woman. It's one of the things I've always loved about her, her gentle demeanor, her quiet strength. I'm pretty similar, more of a listener than a talker. So, when she erupted like a volcano a few weeks ago, it wasn't just out of character. It was like a scene from an entirely different play. The fuse was lit by something I considered an honor, a bittersweet privilege. My niece Olivia, who's 22, just a year younger than our Emily, asked me to walk her down the aisle at her wedding. Olivia is my older brother David's daughter, David. God, I still miss him every single day. He was 6 years my senior, but we were incredibly close. Thick as thieves despite the age gap. He was killed in a tragic car accident 2 years ago, a blow that devastated our entire family. Olivia, her mom, my sister-in-law Karen, and I were hit the hardest. He was her hero. For the first year after David's death, Emily and I made it a point to drive out to their place in Geneva every weekend. Just to check in, offer support, share a meal, maybe a few memories. I tried to get Sarah to come along, but she always had an excuse. A headache, a prior commitment, needing a quiet weekend at home. Eventually, I stopped pushing. She said she felt like she'd be intruding on our grief, that her connection to David wasn't as deep, and she'd feel awkward, like an insincere bystander. I didn't quite buy it. David was her brother-in-law for over 2 decades, but I let it go. I figured she was processing in her own way. Over time, Karen and I grew even closer, a bond forged in shared loss. And Olivia? Well, I tried my best to be there for her, to offer some semblance of the paternal comfort and guidance she'd always received from David. I think in a way, she started to see me as a sort of surrogate father figure. I adore Olivia. She's a bright, kind young woman, so much like David. So when she called me a few days ago, her voice a little shaky, and asked if I would do her the honor of walking her down the aisle at her wedding, which is just 3 short weeks away, I was deeply touched. Honestly, I'd half expected it, hoped for it even. It felt right. It's what David would have wanted. I said yes immediately, my heart swelling with a mix of pride and a profound sadness for my brother who wouldn't be there. I assumed Sarah would be just as pleased. She'd always seemed fond of Olivia. But when I told her later that evening, her reaction was seismic. We were in the kitchen. I was making my famous, or infamous depending on who you ask, chili, and Sarah was setting the table. "Guess what, honey?" I said, stirring the pot. "Olivia asked me to walk her down the aisle. So sweet of her." Sarah dropped a fork. It clattered loudly on the hardwood floor. She turned to me, her face pale, her eyes wide with something I couldn't decipher. Then, her expression hardened. "You said yes, didn't you?" Her voice was tight. "Well, yeah, of course," I said, a little taken aback by her tone. "It's a huge honor. David would have wanted." "David isn't here, Mark," she snapped, her voice rising to a level I hadn't heard in years. In that moment, walking a daughter down the aisle, that's sacred. It's for a father and his daughter, not an uncle and his niece. "What were you thinking?" I was stunned into silence. "Sarah, what are you talking about? Olivia doesn't have her father. I'm the closest thing." "You're trying to replace him," she accused, her voice trembling. "That's what this is about, isn't it? You want to step into David's shoes, play the hero. It's selfish, Mark, utterly selfish. Have you even considered how Emily will feel? Your own daughter. Her first time seeing you walk someone down the aisle, and it's not even her. It's Olivia. How do you think that will make her feel?" "The accusations hit me like a physical blow," replaced David. The thought was abhorrent. And Emily, honestly, it hadn't crossed my mind that Emily would be upset. She and Olivia are practically sisters, best friends. Emily is even Olivia's maid of honor. That's incredibly unfair, Sarah," I managed, my voice shaking, "and completely untrue. Emily adores Olivia. I can't imagine she'd have a problem with this." But Sarah was on a roll, her usual shyness completely obliterated by this sudden, inexplicable rage. She hurled more accusations, her words becoming more and more irrational, more hurtful. I was so caught off guard, so wounded by her claim that I was trying to replace my own brother, that I didn't even try to defend myself. I just stood there, chilly forgotten, absorbing the shockwaves. When she finally ran out of steam, her chest heaving, I turned and walked out of the kitchen, went into the guest room, and locked the door. I needed space. I needed to process what had just happened. She didn't follow. She didn't knock. She didn't apologize. That hurt almost as much as her words. An hour later, still reeling, I called Emily. I had to know if Sarah's concerns about her feelings had any merit. I explained what Olivia had asked, carefully omitting the details of Sarah's meltdown. Emily's reaction? Pure delight. "Oh, Dad, that's amazing. Of course you should. Olivia will be so happy. She actually asked me a while ago if I thought you'd be okay with it if she asked, and I told her you'd be honored. It's exactly what Uncle David would have wanted." Relief washed over me, so potent it almost buckled my knees. Emily wasn't upset. In fact, she'd practically endorsed the idea. This confirmed it. Sarah's reaction was entirely baseless, her accusations unfounded and deeply hurtful. Armed with this, I decided to confront Sarah at dinner. If she was even speaking to me. She was, but barely. The silence was thick with unspoken grievances. "I spoke to Emily," I said, my voice carefully neutral. "She's thrilled for Olivia and completely fine with me walking her down the aisle. In fact, Olivia had already discussed it with her." I paused, waiting for an apology, an acknowledgement that she'd been wrong. It didn't come. Instead, Sarah doubled down. "That doesn't change the principle of it, Mark. It's still not right. It's a father's role. And when the father isn't there, Sarah," I pressed, my patience wearing thin. "Who then? Does Olivia walk alone because you have some rigid, outdated notion of sacred roles?" She didn't scream this time, but her voice was cold, laced with an intensity that was frankly terrifying. "If you walk Olivia down that aisle, Mark," she said, her eyes boring into mine, "consider our marriage over. I mean it." I was speechless. Divorce? Over this? After nearly 30 years together, she was threatening to end our marriage because I wanted to support my grieving niece in a way my brother no longer could. It was insane. It was incomprehensible. "You can't be serious," I whispered. "Try me," she said, her gaze unwavering. I had nothing more to say. I got up from the table, my dinner untouched, and retreated back to the guest room. That was 3 days ago. We haven't spoken since. We live in the same house like two ghosts, an invisible wall of resentment and confusion between us. If I enter a room, she leaves. The silence is deafening. I heard her crying in our bedroom last night when I got up to use the bathroom. It broke my heart. I wanted to go to her, to hold her, to understand what was causing her such pain, but I couldn't. I was too hurt, too bewildered. We've had disagreements before, of course, but nothing like this. Nothing that threatened the very foundation of our lives together. I love my wife, more than words can say. The thought of life without her is a physical ache. But I also loved my niece, and I loved my brother. Walking Olivia down the aisle feels like the right thing to do, a final act of love for David, a gesture of unwavering support for his daughter. If Emily, who Sarah claimed would be hurt, is okay with it, then Sarah's objection feels manufactured. Cruel, even. I don't understand how she's doing it, how she's maintaining this icy distance. Heck, I don't even know how I'm doing it. Something has to give. I can't imagine living like this. I certainly don't think I'd be happy if she actually left me. I'm at a total loss. Is wanting to walk my niece down the aisle, despite my wife's bizarre and extreme opposition, making me the asshole here? Another 2 days crawled by, bringing the total to 5 days of agonizing silence. I was a wreck. I couldn't eat, couldn't sleep. I missed Sarah. I missed our easy companionship, her gentle smile, the way she'd hum off-key while gardening. This felt like a nightmare. I decided I couldn't take it anymore. I'd talk to her today, try to break through this wall, even if it meant another fight. But she surprised me. I woke up this morning, or rather was woken up, by the smell of coffee and bacon. Sarah was standing by the guest room bed with a breakfast tray. Her eyes were red-rimmed, but she was attempting a smile. I was stunned. After nearly a week of glacial silence, this was unexpected. She set the tray on the nightstand. "Mark," she began, her voice soft, hesitant. "I am so sorry." I just stared at her, too groggy and emotionally whiplashed to form a coherent thought. "The things I said about you wanting to replace David, I didn't mean it. I regretted it the moment it came out of my mouth. I was just so angry and scared, I didn't think." She looked down at her hands, twisting her wedding ring. "And threatened to leave you. Mark, I'd be miserable without you. Lost. We've been together forever." That was a horrible, stupid thing to say. Relief so potent it made me dizzy flooded through me. "Sarah, let me finish," she said, meeting my eyes again. "A reason I've been so not myself, and I owe you an explanation. I'm not ready to tell you yet. It's complicated, and I'm embarrassed." "Embarrassed? What could possibly be so embarrassing that it would cause this level of turmoil?" "It's something I've carried for a very long time, Mark," she continued, her voice barely a whisper. "A secret. And it's bad, but I promise I will tell you soon, when I feel strong enough. Please just don't push me right now. Can we just be okay? For now, a secret she's carried for years." My mind reeled. What could it be? But looking at her, at the genuine pain and vulnerability in her eyes, I knew I couldn't pressure her. Not now. The most important thing was that we were talking again. That the threat of divorce, that awful, unthinkable word, was off the table. "Okay, Sarah," I said, my voice hoarse. "Okay, we're okay." I knew, deep down, that whatever this secret was, it was the key to understanding her bizarre behavior. And a part of me was terrified of what it might be. But another part, the part that had loved this woman for over 3 decades, knew that I would forgive her, no matter what. We were in this together. 2 days later, the fragile peace in our Naperville home was still holding, though an undercurrent of unspoken tension remained. Sarah was making an effort, small smiles, gentle touches, but I could see the strain around her eyes. The secret, whatever it was clearly a heavy burden. I tried to be patient, to give her the space she needed, but the curiosity, the gnawing uncertainty, was eating away at me. Then this afternoon she found me in the den, where I was trying, and failing, to concentrate on a book. She sat on the ottoman opposite my armchair, her hands clasped tightly in her lap. "Mark," she began, her voice low and trembling. "I need to tell you, I can't carry this anymore, especially not with Olivia's wedding so close." My heart lurched. This was it. "Before I say anything," she continued, her gaze fixed on her lap, "I need you to understand, or at least try to. This isn't about Olivia. It's not about Emily. It's about Karen." "Karen? My sister-in-law? What did Karen have to do with any of this?" "For context, Mark, you know Karen and I were friends in high school, right? Good friends. We met, I think, freshman year, not long after you and I started dating." I nodded. I remembered Karen from back then, vibrant, outgoing, a stark contrast to Sarah's quiet demeanor. They'd been an unlikely pair, but close. Karen was even one of Sarah's bridesmaids at our wedding. That's where she'd first met David. Well, Sarah took a shaky breath. "The thing is, David wasn't the only one who noticed Karen at our wedding. Or rather, Karen wasn't only interested in David." I frowned, confused. "What do you mean?" "A few days before our wedding," Sarah said, her voice barely audible, "we had my bachelorette party. Just a small thing with the bridesmaids. Karen got really drunk, blackout drunk. And she confessed something to me." She paused, and I could see her struggling for words. Silence stretched, taut and heavy. The book I was holding slipped from my fingers, landing with a dull thud on the carpet. Me? Karen was in love with me? It felt like a punch to the gut. I stared at Sarah, my mind struggling to process this. "She whispered it to me," Sarah continued, her eyes welling up. "Giggled about it even, in her drunken state. Said she'd had a crush on you since sophomore year." I was horrified. I didn't know what to say. I tried to dismiss it, tell myself it was just the alcohol talking. But the next day, when she was sober, I asked her about it. And she admitted it was true. But she swore she'd never act on it, that it was just a silly crush, and begged me not to make a big deal out of it. My head was spinning. Karen, my brother's wife, the mother of my niece, had been in love with me? "I still let her be a bridesmaid," Sarah choked out, tears now streaming down her face. "What else could I do? Kick her out days before the wedding? 'Cause the scene, we pretended it never happened. But things were never the same between us after that. We stopped talking, really, drifted apart." "Then she started dating David," I said, trying to make sense of it. "Just a few months after our wedding." "Exactly." Sarah cried, the anguish in her voice palpable. "And I became insecure, terrified. I convinced myself she was only marrying David to be close to you, to be part of our family, to have a way into your life. It sounds crazy, I know, but Mark, you and David, you look so much alike, especially back then. It didn't help. A wave of nausea washed over me. This was insane. All these years, she and I, we had a huge fight about it weeks before her wedding to David, Sarah confessed, her voice thick with shame. I accused her. I said horrible things, that she was using my brother. She denied it, of course. Denied it, of course. Insisted she genuinely loved David, that their marriage had nothing to do with me or her past feelings. But I didn't believe her. Or maybe I didn't want to. The bitterness, the resentment, it just grew. I never told you, Mark. How could I? I didn't want to ruin David's happiness. What if I was wrong? What if she did love him? It felt like my burden to carry, and she had carried it. For over 2 decades. This corrosive secret, poisoning her friendships, her peace of mind, her interactions with my brother's family. Her reluctance to visit David and Karen, her excuses, her distance. It all made a terrible, heartbreaking kind of sense now. The learned helplessness she must have felt, trapped by this secret, unable to voice her deepest fears without potentially destroying relationships. When David died, Sarah whispered, and you started spending so much time with Karen, visiting every weekend. All those old insecurities, that jealousy, it came roaring back. But it was different. Before, it was David, Karen and you. Now it was just you and her, and Olivia. And when you told me you were going to walk Olivia down the aisle, all I could picture was you, Karen, and Olivia playing happy families, her family, and me, on the outside. It felt like she was finally getting what she'd always wanted, you, stepping into David's shoes, becoming the man of her family. She broke down then, sobbing uncontrollably. I know it's irrational. I know you love me. I know you'd never, but those feelings, Mark, they're so old, so deep, I couldn't control them, and I couldn't tell you why I was so upset without revealing all of this. So I lashed out. I said those awful things. About you replacing David. About Emily. It was all a deflection. My way of trying to stop something that in my twisted, insecure mind felt like a betrayal. I was quiet for a long, long time, just watching her cry, my own emotions a tangled mess. Shock, disbelief, a profound sadness for her, for Karen, for David. For all the years lost to this unspoken poison. How had she lived with this? How had she managed to put on a brave face, to be a loving wife and mother, while this was eating her up inside? The mental fortitude it must have taken. Finally, I knelt in front of her, gently taking her trembling hands. Sarah, I said, my voice hoarse. Oh, Sarah, I thanked her for her honesty, for her courage in finally telling me. Thanked her for protecting David's marriage, even at her own expense. And then I held her while she cried, really cried, for the first time in what felt like ages. It was a release, a purging of decades of pent-up fear and resentment. We talked for hours after that, about Karen, about David, about the codependency that had kept Sarah silent, prioritizing the peace of the family over her own emotional well-being. We talked about the trauma bond she'd inadvertently formed with this secret, making it a central, defining point of her relationship with her own sister-in-law. It's been a few hours since her confession. We haven't discussed it further. She's emotionally exhausted, and frankly, so am I. I need time to process. The thought that Karen, my sister-in-law, harbored those feelings for me, it's unsettling, to say the least. Did David ever know? Did Karen ever truly love him, or was Sarah's initial fear justified? These are questions that may never be answered. But here's what I do know. I love my wife. This incredible, flawed, fiercely loyal woman who has carried an unimaginable burden for so long, all to protect the people she loved, even if it meant sacrificing her own peace. Her reaction to me walking Olivia down the aisle, while extreme and hurtful, now makes a painful kind of sense. It wasn't about the act itself, but about what it symbolized to her, through the distorted lens of her long-held secret. There's just a week left until Olivia's wedding, and yes, I'm still walking her down the aisle. Now that everything is out in the open, Sarah understands. She truly does. She's spent enough time with Olivia to know she's a good kid, a kid who deserves a father figure on her special day. And Sarah knows, without a shadow of a doubt, that this is what David would have wanted. My commitment is to my niece, and to honoring my brother. As for Karen, we've decided, Sarah and I, to let sleeping dogs lie. Bringing up this decades-old confession now, especially after David's death, would serve no purpose other than to cause more pain. Karen is Olivia's mother, my sister-in-law. We will be polite, we will be family, but the past, at least that part of it, will remain unspoken between us and her. My wife trusts me, implicitly. She knows I would never do anything to hurt her. And she apologized, profusely and sincerely, for the things she said in her fit of rage and fear. Knowing the why behind her anger allows me to forgive her completely. She, in turn, knows better than to hold my connection with David's family against me. I will continue to be there for Karen and Olivia, to support them however they need. That's my commitment to my brother. But the dynamic for Sarah is now free of that old toxic shadow. This secret, this massive life-altering revelation, will stay between Sarah and me. It's our burden to carry now, together. But it's a burden shared, and that makes all the difference. We've also decided that Sarah needs to seek therapy. This tendency to bottle up her feelings, to suppress her emotions until they explode over something seemingly insignificant, it's not healthy. She's carried too much, for too long. She needs to learn that it's okay to be vulnerable, to not always have to put on a brave face for the world, or even for me. She agrees. We're in this for the long run, and that means supporting each other's emotional well-being, even when it's hard. The road ahead won't be easy. There's a lot of healing to do, a lot of rebuilding of trust, not in our love for each other, but in our ability to communicate our deepest fears. But for the first time in weeks, I feel a sense of hope. The storm has passed, the secret is out, and my wife, my incredible, strong, loving wife, is back by my side, ready to face whatever comes next, together. And next week, when I walk Olivia down that aisle, with Sarah looking on, I know it will be a moment not of division, but of family, of love, and of a hard-won, deeply cherished peace. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch!